2.5, 3 pounds, you'll begin to start getting large forms, and you'll be able to, if you pull this off, you'll have the bottom of a teapot or the bottom of a pitcher.
It's making nut shape.
Ooh, that is big. Contact.
2.5 pounds of clay.
So they know all this whole thing. Forgive me. You do what Zoe has taught you and be consistent with Zoe. But I teach people to push down so it's on the wheel head or on the back firmly. Sit close. I can't get any closer, and I'm forward on the stool. That brings me above, so I'm using the strength in my body as opposed to the strength in my arms. My hands are nice and juicy. I'm going to anchor my left hand against my pelvis, and I'm going to address the clay in through here and against the fingers of my right hand. My left hand is pushing, my right hand is pulling. It's a push-pull, and this is called coning up. I just drop my hand in the same position over. The thumb is doing all the work. The fingers of my right hand are expanding to allow the diameter to increase, but they are reining in the irregularity that is occurring as the clay moves down. And this generally occurs in a series of 3 gestures. It is centering and wheel wedging the clay. It gives your body a real sense of how stiff the clay is. So first the cylinder. Going to open up. As you get more proficient, and if you, for example, intend to make cups, you can make your bottom as thin as you anticipate the walls of the cup will be, and not plan to trim it at all. So I'll show you how you can use a foot template to clean it up. It is more skilled, actually. It requires more skill than just leaving a thick bottom that you'll trim. I would always measure my bottom. I'm not going to do it now. I'm opening it up, using the second of the hand positions. My hip is against, my elbow is against my hip. In actuality, against all the studio keys of the Western world.
So you're opening up, you're still leaving overhang.
It's just the way I do it. It's just the way it happens. I'm not intentionally doing it. What I'm trying to do is open the bottom to correspond roughly to the width of the centered form. I don't want to bring it out over the centered form, nor do I want it to be so small an opening that I can't get my hand in, that I have a great deal of clay to lift up and manage. So I've come out almost to the edge. A cylinder is characterized by a wall that's perpendicular to the bottom. So I'm going to, at this point, roll my fingers out, creating a slight concavity there. And that concavity will allow me to grip the clay and lift it up. And there's an appreciable bottom there. I would normally measure earlier on, so there's a bottom to trim if I want a foot from. We talked about using the claw when you open a bowl. I'm going to just use a claw for ease of lifting. The sponge isn't doing anything. Adding a little lubrication. You can use the potter's knuckle if you want. Come to the top. Thicken and compress the rim. Okay, now lubrication no longer on my hand. Lubrication now on the clay by squeezing it to the inside and the water shoots down, touching it to the outside. Here's the potter's knuckle. And to the extent that you're lifting it toward the center, to the extent that it's conical at this point, you'll have control. If it begins to flare out, not so much control. So you see me now at this point gathering material from the outside and trying to lift that up.
So are you also lifting some from the inside? Like
Mhm.
equal amount?
Both hands are applying equal pressure. That's important in the beginning when you're thinning, or you somehow cultivate a second wall. Mary, a very appropriate time.
I noticed.
Lubrication, lubrication. Again, a little bit of an indent there. And grabbing a hold of what's at the bottom. Can you see it? It's rolling upward. I can't join my hands because the form is too tall for my hands to join at this point, but if I keep my elbow like this, locked like this, it is a braced position. So as soon as I can, I'm going to link my hands because the two hands together are very braced. Come to the top, let go gently with both hands, thicken and compress the rim. Now it's starting to get thinner. There's still material there.
Which one is lower, the outside or the inside?
The inside is on the floor. The outside is on the back.
So as you're pulling up.
So they do have a misalignment.
Right.
And the inside hand is higher because it's a floor's length higher. So you saw...
Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's all fine. They pay me for this. You see I'm beginning to bring that little extra again up. Notice my hands are joined when they can join. And what you're doing now is, I wouldn't say that Jeannie is a beginner. I wouldn't say that you're really a beginner either, but
I have no shame.
no, you had no experience. Wendy is now beginning to feel, and Mary too, you're beginning to feel thickness. And if you feel that it's thinner in some place, you're going to release your pressure a little bit, but continue the pass. Okay, so I should almost be there. Gosh, an accessory is getting. So now you see my inside finger is pushing out. It's in that indentation. I'm going to collect what's below that and lift it up. So what we know that you don't know, Wendy, is nothing extra can touch or lean on the rim. It will pull it out of round. But if it does, if you continue your pass up, you will straighten it. It's a sort of, I think of it as a potter's poise, kind of, knowing that you can straighten it when you're done. Okay, one more lift. Growing old before my very eyes. First pots are always, so there it is on the bottom. I'm pushing out, I'm collecting the difference First pots are always a little bit tight.
And with each pass, you're going a little slower on the
Yes,
speed, right?
yes, because the clay is now thin and wet. A great observation. And it's easy to thin the top, not so easy near the bottom. So you're mindful that you don't want to necessarily thin it too much at the top.
Kind of like gradually less pressure as you get to the top.
Yeah, well, it depends upon what your fingers tell you. I always leave a bulky place, and then if you have irregularities, let's see, cut this off. So there's always going to be some extra down here. There's no way of getting around. Well, some people, Deanne Peeney pulls up the thinnest, most beautiful, like pound pot you could ever imagine, and there's not an extra bit of anything on her pot, but I'm not as familiar. I'm going to just get rid of that little extra now. We would be doing that at the very end, but if you have an anomalous lift where there are weak places or irregularities, and it's very easy to squeeze just a little bit harder. You can use a rib, and even better if you have acquired a nice long rib. You can push the clay toward that rib and straighten things out. I like the look of the concentric rings, so I very seldom do that. And then if this were a cup and you were trying to make it be uniformly thin without a trim on the bottom, if the walls and the bottom were intentionally the same trim, you might use something called a foot template. So you see it's just this tool, in this case carved out with a little Swiss Army knife. It has a notch here too, but you might finish your pot by pushing it in there, and it just finishes it without you having to worry about a trim. And then a thin wire through the bottom, and here, a thin wire through the bottom, very flat.
It'd be a good beer stein.
Oh, wouldn't
Yeah,
it?
boy, you could get a buzz off that. And then the very best way of learning, and it's hard to convince beginners of this, is to look at the pot from the inside out. So this does have a little...
Oh, I know, I can't believe you did that.
It's okay, it's okay, it's only clay. So you can see it's fairly even. There's room for trim here, but it's fairly even from top to bottom. Okay, from this form, with the bowl's bottom, you should be able to get to here. So let's see if I can do that.
Would you, if you trim the foot like that, and